回答这些问题的。Okay, yes, Lydia, I think you can go ahead.
Okay. My name is Lydia Gottesfeld. I'm an attorney at Community Legal Services, and I specialize in public benefits and access to affordable utility service. And I'll be talking about the LIHEAP program today.
OK，她的名字叫 Lydia Gottesfeld 是这个社区法律的服务的里边的。她的专业是关于就是公共福利，还有就是关于一些人员，就是现在说的这个 LIHEAP 就是这个人员补助。
So what is LIHEAP? LIHEAP is a program that helps low-income customers pay for home heat or heat-related service, and it's run by the Department of Human Services through the local county assistance welfare offices.
他就是说什么是这个 LIHEAP 呢？这个是一个计划去帮助这个低收入的客人去付这个家里的那个暖气，还有就是关于就是还有相关的服务。那它这个是这个政府部门的这个人力资源服务的去的这块来的，就是基本上说是这个福利机构福利部门。
Because LIHEAP is a heating program, it's usually available during the winter. This year, the LIHEAP season is open from October 18th through May 6th of next year.
因为这个计划是一个暖气的计划，所以它只是冬天的时候才有。所以今年的这个计划是从10月18号到5月6号。
And there's 3 different types of help you can get from the LIHEAP program, and I'm going to talk about all 3.
他说有3种的这个补助计划，它是这个就是关于暖气的，它会等一下会3种都会讲的。
Okay, there's a LIHEAP cash grant, there's a LIHEAP crisis grant, and there's crisis interface program.
有一个是叫这个 cash grant， 就是一个现金的，可是是一个现金的这个基金，然后有一个是危机的 LIHEAP 危机基金，然后还有一个是危机的特殊处理的计划。
So the LIHEAP cash grant is quite simply money toward your heating bill.
他说这一个现金的这个基金就是基本上就是把这些钱给你的这个暖气账单。
You can use the grant to pay for either your primary or secondary source of heat.
这个是可以给你主要的这个暖气可以给你是附加的暖气。
Okay, that means if you have gas heat, but you need the electricity to run the gas heat, you could potentially apply your grant toward the electricity or the gas, whichever you choose.
他就说，如果你的暖气是用这个煤气的，可是是需要用电的，那么你可以申请用来去给他们这个电也可以，那个煤气也可以。
Okay, so the eligibility requirements for LIHEAP cash grant are that you live in Pennsylvania, you have household income below 150% of the federal poverty level, and that you have a home heating responsibility.
他说申请人必须是住在宾州了，然后他的收入一定在这个贫穷线的150% 以下，家里的收入，然后还有这个家里的暖气还是需要是负担的一个暖气的这个账单的。
For home heating responsibility for the cash grant, you have to be responsible for the primary source of heat, or what they refer to as a supplemental source of heat. So if your heat doesn't work very well and you have to use space heaters, that counts too.
就是说这个人是主要这个暖气必须是他的账单来的。如果不是的话，如果是就算原来你是要用煤气的这个家里的这个暖气，可是因为这个暖气坏了还是怎么样，原来是其他人付的，可是因为这个暖气坏了，另外你自己需要付，可能买一些电的暖气的话，这些也是你自己需要付的话，这个你也可以申请的。
If you pay for your heat through your rent as a part of your rent, that still counts, and you can get a LIHEAP grant.
他说如果你是这个暖气是这个租金已经包含在里边的话，那么你也可以申请这个基金。
If that is the case, and you do pay for heat through rent, your LIHEAP grant will be half of what a typical LIHEAP grant will be. They'll give you like half the money, and they'll give it directly to you rather than paying your utility company.
他是说，如果是真的你是这个暖气都已经包括在这个租金里边的话，这个他们给你的这个基金呢，就会是一半的。通常是如果是500块，他就给一半的，然后这些钱是直接给你的 ，OK， 这个是直接就给这个申请人的。
So how much can you get in a cash grant? This year, you can get a minimum of $500 and a maximum of $1,500.
他说，那么助理你可以拿到多少钱呢？他说这个钱可以是今年是可以最少是500，最多可以是1500。
The amount that you get is based on your income and a number of other factors. Most people I work with get closer to $500.
他说这个助理多少钱是根据这个家里人的收入的 ，OK？ 他说他知道了，很多人都是拿到500块钱的。
I'll note that this is a special year. There's a lot of money available in the LIHEAP program due to some of the pandemic laws. So usually you see, okay, go ahead. Sorry.
他说今年是一个很特别的年份因为就是这个疫情，所以他是有很多钱是可以去申请的。
So if you've gotten LIHEAP in the past, you may have gotten closer to like $200, which is what we usually see cash grants. But everything's increased this year, so it's really, really beneficial to get your LIHEAP grant this year.
他说上一年有些人可能只是申请可以拿到200块钱，可是今年呢，他因为增加到500块钱，所以是很多人其实都应该利用这个机会。
Okay, and I already mentioned that you can choose whether you use your LIHEAP grant to pay for your primary source of heat or your secondary source of heat. So if you have gas and electric, you could choose, I want my $500 grant applied to my gas bill or to my electric bill.
他就刚才也说了，这个钱是可以给电也可以给煤气公司也可以，就是你自己可以就确定你要给电还是给煤气的。
Okay, so a crisis grant is the second type of help available, and that is money toward your primary or secondary heat source if you're experiencing a home heating emergency.
然后现在讲的这个危机的这个基金 ，OK， 这个也是给你的可以给暖气还是电的，就是你的暖气的供应商可是要求是你家里是现在有经历一个家里的这个暖气的紧急情况。
So the requirements of the crisis program are similar to that of the cash program. You have to live in Pennsylvania. Your household has to have income below 150% of the federal poverty level. You have to have a heating responsibility.
Okay, 他就是说去要合资格了，就你必须是跟之前的讲的那个计划的符合条件150% 以下的收入，然后还有这个账单是你需要负责的。
For crisis, the heating responsibility is a little different. You can have responsibility for either your primary or secondary source of heat.
他说这个危机的话也基本上也是你可以给你第一个还是第二个都没问题就是主要的还是附加的这个暖气供应商也可以的。
But the big difference for the crisis program is that you have to have a home heating emergency.
最主要的分别就是你一定家里是有这个紧急的暖气问题。
Okay, that means your heat has to be already turned off. You have to have a shut-off notice in hand, or you're within 15 days of running out of deliverable fuel.
怎么这个危机是怎么问题？这个紧急是怎么了？就是你的暖气被关了 ，OK， 还是你这个供应商就是给你一单说会关 把你的这个这个 gas 还是这个煤气还是电会被关了，有一个通知给你，然后还不然的话也是就是你现在是15天之内你就会没这个能源了，没有这个油啊、暖气啊还是什么的，就是15天之内就没有了。
So importantly, it's December 2nd today. So yesterday was December 1st, and that was the first day of the winter moratorium in Pennsylvania for regulated utilities.
他说今天是12月2号，然后昨天是12月1号，12月1号有一个就是修正案，就是关于这个冬天的有一个修正案。
So the winter moratorium is from December 1st through March 31st. PICO and PGW can't shut off low-income people. They're not allowed to turn off your service.
基本上就是说12月1号到3月31号的这个例，就是说电力公司还有煤气公司没办法，不可以把你的这个能源断掉。
And so what that means is you won't have a shut-off notice for the next few months. So you can't really get crisis during this time.
他就是说，意思就是说，他没办法关闭你的能源的话，那么他就不会给你一个通知说要关你的能源，那么你也没办法去申请这个危机基金。
Starting February 1st, the utilities will start to send shut-off notices again. And they have a special deal with LIHEAP that starting February 1st, you can start getting crisis again, even though the winter moratorium goes through the end of March.
OK， 他说他还是有一个就是合约，就是说2月1号的话，这些人就是如果是欠就是有危机的话，他们都可以申请这个危机计划。
Okay. And we see a lot of shut-off notices in the spring. So this year, the fact that the program goes through early May is great. That's longer than it usually goes. And that means that people who are getting shut-off notices in April will have enough time to get into the office and apply for LIHEAP.
OK， 他就是说通常他们现在很多这个通知被关闭的通知是在春天的时候所以现在这个 LIHEAP 它是延长到就是5月的话是很好的，就是有些4月份还赶得及去申请这个危机的基金。
So the other requirement when it comes to crisis grants is that the grant that you can only get LIHEAP crisis if the utility agrees that the grant will resolve the crisis.
OK， 他就是说这个钱就是你可以申请的情况，就是说你这个申请到这个基金之后，你这个供应商OK 就是同意你这一个危机会被解除的。
Okay, and I'm going to talk about that, but I wanted to show you here that this year the maximum crisis grant is $1,200, which is much higher than a normal year.
他就是说，他就是先给一个例子，他说今年这个最多的这个危机的基金是1200块钱，就是比起之前的话是多很多了。
So we're very hopeful that crisis grants will be available to resolve most people's shut-off issues, because with a cash and crisis grant combined, you could get, at least $1,700.
OK， 他就是希望今年应该是很多这个能源的问题都可以用这个 LIHEAP 的这个计划去解决的，因为之前的那个现金再加现在这一个1200的话，最少也是有1700块钱的。
However, if you have a very high utility bill, say you have a PGW bill of $7,000 and you apply for crisis, PGW would likely say, nope, we're not going to take the grant because it's not enough.
OK， 他就是说，如果你是用很多电的，你的账单可能是7000块钱，也拖欠很久，7000块钱，那么这个危机处理只可以给1700的话，那个就是煤气公司有可能说不要，我不要这个基金 ，OK， 他会说不要这个基金的。
Here in Philadelphia, when you apply for LIHEAP and the amount that LIHEAP is going to give you is not enough to resolve a crisis, they should refer you over to the Utility Emergency Services Fund, USIF.
OK， 他就是说，如果是真的是有这个情况的话，这个 LIHEAP 是没办法解决这个问题，你的账单还是剩下很多钱的话，他们应该会把你转介到有一个叫能源紧急服务计划USIF。
USIF is another agency providing utility grants, and they'll determine if you're eligible and potentially the LIHEAP grant and the USIF grant combined would be enough to resolve the crisis and you could get approved.
OK， 这个 USIF 是一个机构，表示提供这个能源的这个基金的，他们会判定，如果合资格的话，这个 LIHEAP 加他们这一个 USIF 的基金的话，加起来可不可以把这个危机解决
？But the bottom line takeaway here is that there's a lot of more money available through cash and crisis, and we'd really encourage everybody in general who has a heating responsibility to apply, but also if you have a crisis, even if you have a high bill, to go ahead and apply.
它基本上就是希望就是可以利用这些能源补助去把这个危机去解决的，还有就是今年这个基金就是更多了，所以希望就可以解决更多的问题。
Here in Philadelphia, PECO and PGW have set thresholds for which they will accept a crisis grant, even if it's not enough to resolve the crisis.
OK， 它这个在费城的话，这个电力公司还有这个煤气公司，他们就是有确定一个收入的限制就是去评估可不可以接收这个危机的基金，就算这个基金不足够去解决这些这个问题。
So for PECO, as long as your total bill is $5,000 or less, they will accept a crisis grant to resolve your shutoff issue.
在电力公司的话，如果你欠的这个账单是5000块钱以下的话，他们会接收这一个危机的基金去解决你所剩下来的这些钱。
So for PGW, their limits are not as generous. If your service is on, they will accept a crisis grant as long as your total bill is $2,500 or less.
他说 PGW 煤气公司都没有那么大方了 ，OK， 他们的如果你是现在服务还是有的 ，OK， 那么如果你的账单是2500块以下的话，他们都会接受这个基金。
And if you're off, they're saying that they will only, if your bill is $1,200 or less, accept the grant.
OK， 如果你是被关闭了，已经没煤气了 ，OK， 他们唯一会接收这个能源这个危机的基金的话，就是如果你账单是1200块钱以下。
Okay. So the next program that I wanted to talk about is the Crisis Interface Program. This is a program that will fix or replace a broken heater.
他现在说的就是有一个叫 Crisis Interface， 就是一个计划，就是也是一个危机计划来的。它的这个计划是主要去回收还是去更换？如果这个暖气是坏的。
To qualify for the Crisis Interface Program, you must meet the other eligibility criteria we already discussed for LIHEAP, but also have a broken heater.
它就是这个一定需要符合这个 LIHEAP 的要求，然后还有你的暖气是坏的。
The heater must have been operable within the last 2 heating seasons, and the heater must have been operable when you moved in.
它这个暖气必须是你过去2个这个暖气的规度，就是过去2年吧，都是可以用的。也还有你搬进去这个家的时候，你这个暖气还是可以用的。
Okay, and you can get a bunch of services to fix the heater or even get a whole new heater.
这个他们的服务就是可以派人去帮你收这个暖气，也有可能就是可以帮你把这个暖气换了。
And this year, there's also a new program being run through the Crisis Interface Program to provide clean and tune services for heaters.
对，还有今年这个计划新的话，就是加了一样，就是去帮你去清洁，还有把这个调好，把这个暖气调得更好。
So this is just like regular servicing of your heater, and this is new this year, so I don't know a lot about it, but if you're interested in this service, you should go ahead and talk to your LIHEAP office and apply.
他就说这个服务是新的，今年 OK， 所以也没有很多的资料，所以如果你需要资料的话，就可以去问这个 LIHEAP 的办公室。
So how to apply for LIHEAP? As I mentioned, LIHEAP is run by Department of Human Services out of, the county assistance offices.
他就是说怎么申请嘛，就像刚才他说的这个是这个福利部他们的里边的计划，是那些本地的这些院的这个工作服务。
So you can apply at either your local county assistance office or at the LIHEAP County Assistance Office, which is a whole office dedicated to LIHEAP.
就是你可以去他们的这个办公室，你可以去本地的你的这个福利部门，也可以直接去他们专门是关于这个 LIHEAP 的办公室。
And as I noted here, that's located at 1348 West Sedgley Avenue.
他就是说地址是1348 West Sedgley Avenue.
Okay. Another way to apply for LIHEAP is online through Compass for any of you who use that website to do your public benefits applications.
他就说另外一个途径就是可以上网去这个 Compass 的网站，很多人现在都已经是用这个去申请他的这个福利的。
The great thing about using Compass is that LIHEAP is the only benefit on Compass where they could actually make a real-time eligibility determination and determine that you're eligible right then and there.
他说有一个好处就是上网去申请呢，就是他LIHEAP 是唯一的计划是上网去申请的时候，他立时都可以给你一个确定是合不合资格的。
For people who are already receiving benefits like medical assistance or SNAP, on the application, you can sort of check a box that says, use the income you already have on file for me. And that way they're able to do sort of an eligibility determination right then and there if you've submitted the information that's required.
有些人已经是有医疗还是联席券的话，如果上网申请的话，有一个盒子就是可以打一个 O， 就是说要求他用档案里边的收入去判定你合不合资格，如果你已经提交过了。
And I didn't put this on the slide, but if you've already applied for and received a LIHEAP cash grant, you don't have to do a whole new application to get crisis if you get a shut-off notice.
他就是说，他刚才没有提到，就是如果你已经申请了他那个现金的最基本的500块钱那个现金的这个基金的款，如果你有危机的时候，你不需要再重新申请的。
So say you apply for a cash grant now, you have a heating responsibility, you get a $500 cash grant, and then in April, you get a shut-off notice. You don't have to do a whole new application. You can just call the LIHEAP office and say, I got LIHEAP already, now I have a shut-off notice, I need crisis.
就是如果你申请了，就是说你现在申请了 ，OK， 然后拿到500块钱的这个给你这个人员供应商，然后之后呢，你的暖气有问题，要申请这个危机的计划的话，你就可以打电话去他们办公室，有一个热线电话，打电话过去跟他们说，然后他们就可以直接帮你去申请。
Another way to apply is with help. Benefili is an organization in Philadelphia that helps people apply for LIHEAP. That's their hotline number. But they also have intake sites and could potentially be helpful.
他是说，当然你还是可以拿到一些帮助了。这个 Benefili 它是在这个地区都是可以打电话就可以帮你申请。他们当然也有一些办公室是可以面对面的。
If you're denied, you can appeal that decision.
他说，如果你被拒绝的话，你是可以上诉的。
You can file an appeal using the forms in the denial notice that they sent you, or you can just call or go into the office.
他说，如果你是要上诉的话，可以用他给你的这个拒绝的通知里边有一个表格是可以上诉，也可以打电话，还是写信也可以的。
Appealing is helpful because it preserves your rights, and the county assistant office is supposed to work with you to resolve an appeal. So most of them don't ever go to an actual hearing. You just file an appeal, and then you work with the county assistant office to resolve whatever the issue is that you're disputing.
他说上诉是好的，因为上诉有时候你不需要去上庭的。OK， 有时候他们只是打电话，可能一些小问题，他们就可以解决之后就没问题的了。
Usually we're seeing denials for people not submitting certain documents, like not submitting proof of their income or not submitting they sometimes ask for a household composition form. They want to know who's in your household. So you could submit an appeal and then just submit the missing documentation.
有些人很多时候被拒绝了，有些原因是就说没有提交一些文件，有些可能没有提交收入文件，还是他们要求一个表格说你家庭成员是什么人就是其实如果你上诉的话，你再补这些文件给他就可以通过的。
And the other thing I do want to note here, since I have more time than I thought, is that when you're applying for LIHEAP, they look at your income from the month before the month you apply. So if I apply today, they look at my income from the month of November.
他就是说他因为现在还有时间，所以他刚刚又想起一样想跟大家分享的，就是说如果你申请的话，这个收入就是如果你是要前一个月的收入，就算如果你是这一个月申请的，那么他需要整个月上一个月的整个月的收入。
And sometimes income fluctuates. So if I apply today and I get denied because frankly I was just over the income limits, but then my income goes down in December, I might consider just waiting and doing a new application in January. Well, they'll look at my December income instead of my November income.
他就说有些人他的收入可能是不规矩的 ，OK， 没有规律的。有可能你今天申请的话，你的收入可能比较高 ，OK， 所以他们可能会被拒绝的。所以他的意思就是说，你可以再等 ，OK， 可以等一等。如果你12月的收入比较低的话，你可以等到1月的时候去申请。
And the other thing I'll say about income is they have two options for looking at your income. They can look at your income from the month before the month you applied, or they can look at your income for the 12 months before you applied.
OK， 它就是说可以有2个选项去这个看收入的，你可以让他们只看前1个月的收入，也可以让他们看之前12个月的收入。
And that's helpful because say your income's not going to go down in December, but say your income has gone up and for most of the year you didn't have a job, but now you're working and you applied and you're over income for LIHEAP.
他说这个是很重要很有用的，因为有些人可能12月的时候你的年底的时候这个收入是不会降低的，不会小的。OK， 所以如果你整年大半年的前半年的都是没工作的话，那么这样子看12个月的话，你就可能符合条件的。
So you could say to the LIHEAP office, hey, I want you to look at my income, not just from last month, but from all the last 12 months. And you'd have to show proof of what that income was. And that proof may be a letter saying you didn't have income for a certain period of time.
Okay. 他就是说你可以跟这个 LIHEAP 的人员补助的这个办公室要求他们看你收入不要只看1个月，要求他们看你之前的12个月，当然呢你还要提供这个证明的。
It can get confusing and we're here to help. Community Legal Services represents clients in LIHEAP appeals or with other LIHEAP issues. And if you need help, you can call our intake number.
当然你也可以去得到帮助的，他们这个Community Legal Service 就是社区法律服务，他们有免费的去帮人去做这些上诉的资料。
And we respond to intake calls on Monday, Wednesday, Fridays in the mornings. And the numbers here, 215-981-3700.
然后他们每周1、3、5 9点到12点，你都可以打电话去做一个基本的资料收集。他的电话是215-981-3700。
And I'll say that Community Legal Services also has an energy unit. Our energy unit helps people who are having difficulty with their utilities. So if the issue isn't so much a LIHEAP issue, but it's a bigger shutoff issue with PICO or PGW or the water department, we also have an energy unit who can help with those issues.
然后他们 CLS 的话，他们转称是 CLS， 他们也有一个人员的单元就是单位专门就是说，就是如果你这个人员有问题的、有困难的就是不是说一个这个人员补助计划是可以帮忙的。就是还有就是比较严重的这个被停的，这个他们就是可以帮忙的。
So I'm finished a little early, but if folks have questions, I'm happy to answer them.
就是说他需要讲的都已经讲完了，所以大家如果有问题的是可以问问题的。Okay, so just before I pass it on to the other, I know that I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I always have questions. So I do have 5 questions that I've written down. So I want to hand it off just to see if anyone has questions first. 对，我就是跟他说，我现在我自己手头上有5条问题 ，OK。可是如果大家是有什么问题的话，希望大家可以先问，也可以举手，也可以就是在聊天里边打字，也可以把实时声音打开。So for people that have questions, you can actually either raise your hands or you can type the questions in the chat or you can unmute yourself. No? Okay, I actually will start my first question then. Okay, my first question is, I think you talk about the renters can apply. So if the lease is saying they don't really have a utility bill, but how do you determine if they're responsible? So do the lease have to include that the heating is included, or if it does not say the heating included, but they don't need to pay any utility, would that count?
So it's a great question. I think whenever you're dealing with the county assistance office, you have options. You can be, there are different things you could submit to show that you pay heat through rent. The easiest thing is a lease saying you pay heat through rent, right? That heat is included in your rent. But I think what happens is they might ask you if you don't have proof of a utility bill and you say that your heat is included, they might ask you what your living situation is. But I think typically if you're you're not like responsible to pay the heating bill and you're a tenant, then it's sort of assumed that the heat is included as part of rent. So I think if your lease doesn't necessarily say that, I think that you should still try to get LIHEAP, and you may, they may not ask you for anything. You might have to get the landlord to support you in that. But I think you can be flexible, and I think they are flexible. You're not going to be able to get a full grant, but this year the grant is $500, so you can get $250. Usually when there's like a $200 grant, people are only getting $100. And I think a lot of people don't think that it's worth it, but I think it's definitely worth it this year.
对，我刚才的问题就是说，他说租客也可以申请的，所以我问他这个租客需要什么证明？就算这个租单里边没有写说这个暖气是包在里边的，很多时候只是说租金是多少。OK， 那么这个可以吗？他就是说，其实如果你是租客的，都应该去申请，因为今年的这个补助就算是一半的250块钱，还是比上一年的200块钱多了。然后他说很可能你如果是有可能你要提供一些证明，你可能没有这个账单的话，他们会可能要求你提交一些证明，说你的暖气是包括在你的租金里边，有可能需要你的这个房东写一张纸，说这个暖气一定是包含在这个里边的。Okay, so let me I am gonna just go ahead and to someone. Yeah, I think it seems like I have a lot of questions. Is there any difference paying to PICO or PGW?
Is it any different?
Yeah, is there any amount difference if the client wants to pay to PICO or pay to PGW? You know, sometimes people are trying to say, oh, maybe my electricity bill is higher, so maybe you should go to the electricity bill instead. So is there any difference that the amount that paid to PICO or PGW?
No, I mean, if you get a cash grant, your cash grant is just the amount that you get, right? No matter what, it's going to be the same. So if you get $500, you can just choose. I'm sending my cash grant to PICO or sending my cash grant to PGW.
我刚才的问题就是问他这个给这个电费还是煤气公司的，是有没有区别？那个钱是不是一样的？他说其实这个钱就是怎么说了，不管你是给电还是给煤气公司都是一样的。Okay, so yes. Oops, okay. I think she froze or I froze. Okay. 这个忙的。
Anyone have more questions?
Just froze, okay. 冇事啫 internet。
I can see you.
Oh, you can see?
Yeah, you move.
Okay. Can anyone hear us? Oops, I think Lydia. I think
Lydia got kicked out.
Okay.
稍等一下，请问我们陷入问题。
Oh, okay. Yeah, she's back.
Sorry. So I think I went out right at the beginning of talking about crisis grants. It brings up a really good point. So the amount of crisis that you get, you don't automatically get the $1,200 for crisis. The amount you get is the amount needed to resolve a crisis. So say you have a PICO shutoff notice that's $300 and you need $300 to resolve the shutoff. That's how much your crisis grant is going to be. And then say later you also have a PGW crisis. You can use whatever's left of that crisis allotment of $1,200 for that secondary crisis.
Okay. 他就是说刚才说这个 crisis 危机的 ，OK， 他就说刚才说1200，不是说你一次过可以拿1200的，他就是说如果你这个shut off notice 被断这个煤气的这个通知说你因为欠款欠300块钱，那么这个会计危机都会帮你给300块钱。如果之后你的电被断掉了，电可能另外500块钱，那么剩下的这些钱就可以就是你边拿500块钱去付这个电费单。Okay. So I do want to bring this up questions because that's always happened to our clients. The household. How do we count the household? Sometimes you have multi-families in the house. So we always ask the question, do I need to include my senior parents or do I need to include my adult family? So how can, like, what would be the answers?
It's a great question. So unlike for Medicaid and food stamps, where you can kind of have different households, LIHEAP is pretty broad. It's basically everyone who's living together in the household except unrelated roomers. So if you have somebody who's paying you room and board and they're not related to you, they're not included. But pretty much everyone else who's sort of together responsible for utilities is included. And that includes related roomers. So if your cousin is paying you for a room, they're paying you rent for a room, but they're still included in your LIHEAP household.
我刚才问了，就是说我们经常帮人申请这个人员补助都有问题说，如果是几个家庭在一个房子里边，所以我们说的家庭是算什么人呢？他就是说这个是跟这个政府医疗粮食券是不一样的。政府医疗粮食券就是说不可以把这个家里人是分开的不同单独的家庭，可是人员补助是比较广泛的。他说是他要求是每一个住在这个房子里边 OK， 除非这个人是没有关系的这个单独住在这里的 OK， 就是基本上是所有是一起分担这一个账单的人 OK， 包括就算有一个老表有一个表哥在租这个房间的话，那么这一个也是算在里边的 OK。 My follow-up question will be like, how would that affect the MA or food stamp application because you're putting some other people's income on the case?
It shouldn't affect them at all. The county understands that Medicaid and food stamps have different households, but I will say that sometimes it does. We see somebody do a LIHEAP application and then all the benefits get cut off because not necessarily because the household is different, but because the county assistance office thinks that they have more income now or something like that. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, 我就是有一个跟进的问题问他，就是说，如果所有的家里人都放在里边，可能是这个2个老人家加一个成人的家庭的所有的人的收入都算在里边，都填在一起的话，会不会影响这2个家庭的那个医疗还有粮食券的申请？他说通常是不会的，因为这个是他们是分开单独的家庭来算的。可是有时候他要见到这个办公室，他们可能就以为这个人的收入增加了，可能就会把他的这个医疗粮食券都断掉了。
And additionally, if there's multiple families kind of living in the same house, and those families are receiving like medical assistance separately, but they're all receiving it, the county assistance knows that they're living there. So what we'll really, really often see, we see this a lot, is like this one family who maybe is the one who owned the home or is sort of the primary people in the household will apply for LIHEAP and they won't include these other people because they're not part of their immediate family. But the county assistance office knows that these other people are living there. So they'll deny you and they'll send you out this notice that says, we think these other people are living there. Get this form filled out, tell us who's living in the household. And then people kind of freak out. They don't fill out the form because for whatever reason, and they don't get LIHEAP. And that's like a very common reason that people don't get LIHEAP. So we'll look out for those forms, you know, they're totally normal. You can fill them out. And that's one of and sometimes they're sent erroneously, but oftentimes it's those sorts of situations.
他说有一些问题就是有些人就是可能一家里边有2个单独家庭，其中一个家庭是去申请这个人员补助， 可能只有2个家庭就是有这个政府医疗的，所以其中一个家庭去申请人员补助的时候没有填另外一个家庭的资料进去，然后有可能会被拒绝了，然后他这个福利部就可以有一张表格，就是说你要填这个家里有什么人这些表格，所以有些人呢就可能哎呀就太麻烦了，还是因为太紧张了 ，OK， 然后就没有接着去做这个申请了所以对他就是说这个是非常常见的问题。So people should just go ahead and fill out the form. And do they need to resubmit the income document for the other household?
Yeah. If they're going to add people to their LIHEAP household, I mean, that's the thing. Whoever is in the household, their income counts. So you would have to show proof of income for those additional people.
Okay. 他就是说需要把这个，其实就把这个表格填回去没问题的，然后还需要把这个另外一个家庭的收入也一起放进去的，所以这个是这样子就可以完成这个申请表。Okay.
I did want to, oh, sorry, did I interrupt?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
I wanted to mention one other thing I didn't put in my presentation because I was worried about time, about immigration status and mixed status families. So certain immigration statuses are ineligible for LIHEAP. People who don't have any immigration status or undocumented are not eligible for LIHEAP. But there is also no 5-year bar for LIHEAP. So if you have your green card, you can get LIHEAP right away. You don't have to wait 5 years before getting it. If there's people in the household who are eligible and people who are ineligible. So say a parent is undocumented, but the children are citizens or green card holders. That whole household could potentially get LIHEAP, except the way that they count income is not beneficial to the household. What they do is they count the parents' income, but they don't count the parents. So say the parents are both undocumented and the children are both citizens, two kids. They'll count all the income from the parents, but it would only be a 2-person household for the kids. So sometimes people become over income because this way of income counting inflates the income artificially. But the bottom line is that if there are any eligible members in the household, they can get LIHEAP for the household.
OK， 他现在就是之前没有放进去，因为他没有时间。他就是说有一些关于这个移民身份的，还有一些就是可能混合身份的家庭他说如果是合法移民身份的话，这些都是可以申请的。如果是没有身份的，是没办法申请这个 LIHEAP 的。可是还有一样就是说没有这个5年的居住要求的，入卡这个合法身份的要求的，所以你就算不够5年，你还是也可以申请这个 LIHEAP 的。然后有一些家庭是可能有一些是有身份加没身份的，可能就是父母是没身份的，孩子是有身份的，那么他们加起来的话呢其实就可以申请的。只是他们可能计算这个收入的话，可能只看这个就是原来是2个大人2个小孩，他可能只看2个大人的收入，然后把它当成是2个人的家庭，所以他们的算法可能也有一点点的不一样。Okay, good. I think we are close to time, but I do have one last question and one last comment. The last question is we talk about CLS helping the appeal case. So a lot of people actually appealing the case on their own. So what is the difference between people appealing on their own and they actually ask CLS to help with the appeal case?
Well, a good question. People can definitely appeal on their own, and we encourage people to do that. If you come to CLS, we'll do it for you, and we'll be your lawyer for the situation. So if you feel like you can handle it on your own, the system is set up for people to do it on their own, so they should be able to. Sometimes people have complicated situations and they really need help doing it, or sometimes they have difficulty just accessing the systems and they need help. We're here to help, and you get a lot of expertise, especially if it's a complicated issue you're dealing with. But if it's a fairly straightforward thing, you were denied because you didn't submit your pay stub. You just need to submit your pay stub, and you want to do that on your own. We fully encourage people to do that on their own.
Okay.
They can also come to us for help.
Okay. So 我刚才问的就是问题说，如果自己上诉跟找他们的机构去上诉有什么区别了？他说，如果你当然是他们 就是鼓励每一个人都自己去也可以去上诉，有问题就是当然去上诉了可是就是有时候上诉的话，如果你找他们的话，你就会有一个免费的律师去代表你去处理这些案件。有时候当然了，很直接的，就是说只是填了文件这些的话，当然你自己可以就可以了。可是如果有一些比较复杂，就是可能说你收入超过这个不符合条件这些的话，有可能就是找他们去做代表的话就比较容易。So my last comment, I know that you mentioned about Benefit, but I also want to say that there's actually other local nonprofits that's helping, PCDC, and I think Rowan is on the call that she's from Kiev that serves the Cambodian population. And then we serve primarily the Chinese population. So we are agencies that actually help people with a lot of benefit, Medicaid, life, and all those applications. And then in addition, I know Steve is on the call. So in addition, a lot of neighborhood energy centers are also helping people with the life and all other stuff. So I just want to bring that up to the people. 就是想跟大家说，他刚才说 benefit 有帮忙去申请，我也想说，就是其实有很多非牟利的机构都是有帮人去申请的。就像现在在线上有一个Rowan。他是专门是这个柬埔寨的人的，他们也有帮人去申请这些福利。然后我们 PCDC 也是有帮一些主要是中国人，可是也有其他的人去帮他申请这些福利。然后还有等一下会说的这个 ECA 的 Steve， 他们有一些叫能源协调中心，他们也是会帮人去申请这些能源补助计划的。现在 PCDC 也是他们其中一个的一个 NEC 的机构。Yeah, I forgot to mention actually PCDC now is one of the newest NEC neighborhood energy center helping people with that too.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's really great to know. That's wonderful.
Yeah, so I think I am the one who actually took the floor, okay? So if there's any more questions, we will collect and send it to Lydia.
Oh, thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Lydia, for the valuable information regarding the light heap, and thank you, Ping. And we'd like to introduce the second presenter, Steve, and he's going to talk about the weatherization program. And please go ahead, Steve.
Okay.
Actually, before Steve was saying, I just want to translate what Bill said. Okay, he always forgot to translate himself. OK 就是Bill 刚才就是我翻译一些 Bill 说了，他现在就是非常感谢 Lydia 刚才去做了这些讲解关于这个 light heap。现在他是不是轮到第二个，就是 Steve 会讲一些关于这个能源捕捉的就是不是能源捕捉的，是这个他所有的能源效率还有风化的这个有一个计划的。Yep. Okay, Steve, you can go ahead.
Okay, I think this is my third or fourth time I've presented with you, Ping Ho. So this time I decided I'd take an attempt, a stab at putting simplified Chinese on each slide, maybe. So if I'm way off base, then I tried to save you some time.
OK Steve 就是说他现在基本是第三次还是第四次跟我们 PCDC 还有我帮他翻译的。OK 他就是确认解释，他加一点就是简体的中文进去。他说如果这个简体中文不太对了 OK 就是去理解他。I saw you actually you also I think that was pinyin. I was wondering what they are, but I think that's pinyin. At the bottom, yes. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm not going to go through this slide. It's an ECA, promotional slide at all the different services we offer, but I'll just go past that. So we all know.
Yeah, Steve, I just want to, so if you can stop every 2 sentences, so I can just comment. 他刚才就是有一个就是主要是他们 ECA 去一个就是去广告打一个广告，所以他也不说了，现在就去下一个。
Okay. And guess what's coming up pretty soon? Maybe something quite like this.
他说你要知道，可能想一想，现在之后会有什么发生，所以基本上现在图片上面的就可能很快都会有的。
So I like to point out to folks that in this climate where we're at in the Mid-Atlantic, Philadelphia, on average, about 50% of all the money that we put towards energy in our homes, whether it be to heat our house or to energize our lights and televisions and refrigerators and so on, about half of our total energy spent goes towards heating and cooling.
那就是说，在我们这个宾州的我们这里的话，通常平均里边，我们放到能源里边，大概能源里边的50个，就是我们这个能源的费用的话，里边有50% 都是用来这个就是暖气还有冷气的。
So looking at this pie chart, you can see that there's once we get beyond heating and cooling, there's no real big what we call energy loads here, except for this one, the top left. It says other.
它是说，如果你看一些这个表格里边呢，你看到最右上角了，就是这个暖气、冷气的，就是很大的一部分。然后其他的基本上都是小小的。然后你去看一些，它刚才提到最左手边的话，就是这个 other， 就是其他的话，就是 15% 的。
So I like to see who knows their home really well. What does anybody want to take a guess as to what other is?
就是他想看一看大家对家里的能源这个了解程度是什么？有没有谁是想估计一下这个 other 其他是什么了？
Any guesses? No?
有没有谁可以猜一下？
Okay.
Like leaking power?
Nope. Nope. Good guess, but nope. Okay.
I know, but can I answer?
Okay, go ahead.
I think it's just really waste, the energy waste.
Yes, and you are right. You're right. Yeah. The answer is people. How we use, maybe sometimes abuse, energy in the home, from turning on a light switch to whoever has control of the thermostat, which is the gas pedal. It's 15% is us on how much we use the energy in the home.
他就是说，刚才我猜一下，就是说这个是一个被浪费的能源。OK， 然后 C 就是说对的，他说15% 就是我们人用掉的，就是人有可能就是说你可能忘记去关灯还是其他的都是在这里。
So when it comes to making our home more comfortable, first and foremost, and hopefully more energy efficient, many folks, homeowners, think that they have to do something. Excuse me, I'm in the hood here, so I don't know how distracting that is. But most folks go towards their windows in terms of looking for something that they can improve.
所以很多人去看的话了 ，OK 他就是去看，先看就是看，就是如果把这个家庭弄到比较舒服一点的，通常很多人第一个看的就是他们的仓库。
But the reality is, replacing a window is probably the least cost-effective thing that you can do in that house.
可是其实不是的，其实你把整个仓库换了，就其实是也不是最好的方法，不是最小的去可以省这个能源的效率的。
So rather than replace the windows, which is very costly, and as I said, you're not going to get your money back anytime soon, not in this century, anyway.
他说就是与其你把整个仓库全部换了，这个是非常非常很大的开支，你也没办法立即就把这些钱拿回来了。
So in lieu of replacing the windows, I've listed 4 points here that are very relevant and can make a difference. First of all, make sure the window is fully extended to the top and to the bottom, and then that you can sash lock it.
然后他说就是与其去换仓的话，他就是因为他有4个点写在这里，就是比较他认为是比较有用的。第一点就是说你要确保你的仓库是完全是从上到下都是封闭的，然后还有锁的。
Any gaps or cracks or joints that are in a wall that separates the inside of the home to the outside should be filled with caulk or foam or whatever the application is. But it's very, very cost effective to seal any type of opening on a wall that separates the inside from the outside of the home.
它就是说，如果你这个窗里边就是可能有一个有这个缝啊裂缝啊然后还有裂了，还是这个接点里边就是有漏的话了，其实你可以就是还有就是这个墙里边跟外面的墙 ，OK， 如果你是可以就是用一些可能这个玻璃胶啊，还是有这个泡沫啊，还是其他的可以把它封起来。
So when it gets cold out, as it is now, we're officially into what we call heating season. What we recommend is to close the curtains, even if it's a sort of a sunny day. When it's really cold, you're better off actually closing the curtains, and I'll describe or explain in the next couple slides why I recommend that.
他说，如果当是非常非常冷的话 ，OK， 现在是冷天嘛，然后就是要开暖气嘛，其实就是可以把一些就是窗帘，就是把它放下来 ，OK， 他等一下会说为什么，就是不管你外面是可能很太阳很好还是怎么样，那就是因为可以把这个窗帘也是放下来。
So in this these two pics, it sounds, when I say make sure your windows are closed, sounds like a no-brainer, right? Like, oh, no duh, Steve, of course. But I can't tell you how many homes I've been in where people complain about comfort and drafts, and then I look at their windows and find that it's got a little gap because it's just stuck or it's tough to push it all the way up. This little gap is not harmless. It actually creates a lot of energy loss and discomfort. So that's what I was pointing at or suggesting folks do, is make sure this upper sash is pushed all the way up.
然后他说有很多人跟他说，我的家里不舒服啊，还是很冷，还是他们其实都发现很多人其实就是漏了一个缝在窗哪里 ，OK， 就像现在图片上面就是说，很多人可能推不上，没有把它推正，所以上面就漏了一个缝，所以这个冷空气就进来了。
You'll know when your windows are completely extended when you're able to close your sash lock, as you see here on the right. When you can lock that, then your windows should be fully closed.
他就是说，然后通常这些窗是有这个锁的 ，OK， 因为你看到这个锁是完全可以锁的话，那么这个窗很多时候都已经就是密封的，就是关好了。
Another real basic, no cost energy conservation measure is making sure that all the different, what we call heat receptors, like a radiator or a vent or a grill in your home, make sure that it's unobstructed so air can readily, or the heat can readily get out. A lot of times I see folks have sofas pushed up against radiators, they've got chairs on top of registers, and then they can't figure out why their room is cold or too hot or whatever the case may be. So it's, again, sounds like a no-brainer, but a lot of folks sometimes just lose sight of the fact that they're blocking heat.
就是有些基本的这个防寒保暖的，还有就是省能源的tips， 它就是说你要确保你的这个暖气的这个风口啊，还是这个发热的这个风口啊，这些都是就是没有东西去挡着的 ，OK， 这个是通常很多人都这样子说，可是有很多人就是说房间很冷，然后到最后是发现原来是被有东西是堵着这个风口的。
So to get back to my earlier recommendation to close curtains when it gets really cold out, the window offers the path of least resistance for heat. So as the heat comes out of the heat receptor, baseboard, register, whatever, what it really tries to do almost as soon as it gets out is it rises and then it'll look for the weakest spot in terms of energy, which is a window. So it will go through the window. So the
对
heat
它
is
的，对
heat is
它的，
attracted
也
to
是，
the
对，
glass.
它就是说这个暖气 ，OK， 一个从暖气发电里边去发热的时候出来的话，它会上升到最顶的时候，它就会找一个最热的地方，就是可以逃跑的地方，就是通常是这个仓库吧，它会就是跑到这个仓库，然后就会漏出去外面的。
So when the curtain is closed, the heat will come out, but it will not contact the glass because let's assume there's a curtain. And then it just keeps the heat in the house and it does this vortex. But at least it doesn't go outside. And of course, once it goes outside, that's what we call heat loss or energy loss.
它就是说，如果你把这个窗帘翻下来的话，那个有这个窗帘，所以这个热空气不会碰到这个窗，就不会跑到去外面的，因为它会先碰到这个窗帘，然后又会下来了。
So in this example, you see on the left, this curtain was actually sold as a thermal curtain or an energy efficiency curtain. You can buy them anywhere. They're heavy. And what they do is they keep heat in as opposed to keep cold air out. But they're highly effective and they're actually more effective than going out and buying a new window, believe it or not.
它就是说左手边的这个叫暖气就是保暖的这个窗帘 ，OK， 他说这个保暖窗帘其实是可以买的，通常是比较重可是它的功能就是主要就是把这个暖气留在房子里边。他说其实这一个窗帘比你去换这个窗还有效。
And also, this is temporary. In most households, when they do use this is called a window plastic kit, and it's designed for do-it-yourself installation, and they do work. I know they're not looked upon very favorably, but if you don't care how the inside of your house looks, you just want to be warm and hopefully save energy. Putting that over a window and making sure it's tight as a drum skin. Will do twice as much as what a new window would in terms of energy loss. Believe it or not.
他说不管你相不相信，就像右手边这一个，它基本上是有一个是叫仓库的这个胶的这个工具 ，OK， 基本上如果你就是不太在意你家里的这个看上去怎么样的话，你这一个是可以自己安装的，基本上就把它密封，把这些就是玻璃的东西就是密封的话。他说不管你相不相信，其实这个也是非常非常有效的。
So I'm going to give 10 very basic, cost-effective things that anybody can do in their home themselves. So again, sealing, I have large gaps here, but any type of hole or gap or crack or joint, again, on an exterior wall, should be sealed.
他就是说他会很简单的讲一讲10个最省钱的还有效的就是可以做的东西。第一就是说你所有那个外墙 OK 就是把它有些这个裂缝的话就全部把它去密封。
If possible, when air conditioning season is over, ideally taking if the household uses window or room air conditioners, ideally they should be removed, but in some cases, some folks, elderly, for example, can't take them out, so they leave them in year round. So at the very least, they need to be sealed.
他就是说如果有些人有仓库的这个冷气机，通常一个冷天的话是建议是把它移出来，然后把这个窗是关的。可是有时候不行的话，他就认为是找一些东西去，就像刚才说的这个胶的这个胶布，就是把它去封起来。
If possible, if you can get into the basement and they have a furnace, sealing any types of holes or gaps, again, but this time in the ductwork with duct tape is very, very cost effective.
他就说，如果你去地牢的话，有些管道都是有一些裂缝的，OK 所以你也是可以把它们密封起来的。
Again, making sure heat receptors are unobstructed, making sure the windows are completely closed. I double up here, so you don't need to repeat this. But dressing appropriately when it's 30 degrees out, we should dress appropriately so we can allow for a 68-degree temperature in our home.
他就是说，就是还有他有2点，刚才已经说过了，就是密封就是这个不要挡着这个气候。然后他现在说了第6点，就是说你要穿的跟这个温度差不多 ，OK。就像如果你外面是30度的话，你应该穿的是跟差不多这个温度的这样子来穿。
This is probably the biggest opportunity to save energy, and you don't need to buy something, you don't need to hire anybody, but if this particular tip is executed, if somebody actually looks into maybe possibly doing this, the savings potential is really high. If you can lower your thermostat by as much as 5 degrees, maybe 8 degrees, either when you're sleeping or you're out of the home for an extended period of time, at least an hour or maybe more, maybe out to work all day, 8 hours or so. If you can set back 5, 8 degrees, maybe 10 degrees, the savings is astronomical.
他就是说，现在其实是一个非常好的时机去省这个能源的你也不需要浪费什么钱，基本上就是说把你的温度计把它降低5到8度，就是当你睡觉的时候还是不在家的话，如果是1个小时以上的话，把这个温度调低5到8度，一个小时以上的话，这个也是可以省钱的，省能源的。
We also recommend, and this is during the heating season, if there are ceiling fans in the home, to use ceiling fans on the lowest speed in a clockwise direction.
他是说，如果你他是说用这个天夸的风线 ，OK， 就是顺时针的方向，就是他现在说的是这个冷天的时候，冷气的时候你可以开一个非常非常慢的这个就可以了。
Inspect and change the air filter as needed. Now, this is for folks that only have forced air systems.
然后就是说要去检查，还有换你的这个空气的这个过滤器。
And if folks have boilers and radiators in their home, radiators are supposed to be bled annually at the beginning of every heating season.
他说就是还有就是去添加，如果你是用一些发热的这个暖气系统的话，你就需要去每一个 season 每一个冷天之前都需要去把它就是做一些维护的。
If folks could do most, if not all, of these 10 tips, which really don't cost anything in most cases, they'll save more energy than something they can go out and buy. These are low cost, no cost energy conservation measures that most people just aren't aware of, that are highly cost effective.
他就是说，如果你们可以把这10个里边都做好了，这个是不需要费用，还是费用也是很低的。OK， 这样子这个能源，这个省能源省钱的。
So now I'm going to give some examples from the 10 tips. So looking at a window system, you can see this gap. If you see a shadow, generally that means with that darkness, that means there's air that's moving back and forth, and it's probably like that on the other side. So it's very cost effective to seal up that gap with just a simple $8 tube of caulk from Home Depot or hardware store. And once that's sealed up, that seal will probably pay for this $8 can in about a week. That's how quickly you can get your money back when you try to save energy on your heat bill.
他就是说他刚才说了嘛，10个 tips， 他现在就是可能再讲多一点点怎么做。 它这个第一个就是说，你看到左手边的图片，就是说有很多黑的，就是这个有洞 ，OK， 就是会漏这个暖气啊、冷空气进来的。所以它就是说，你可以去买一个，就像右手边这样子，基本上我们以前叫做玻璃胶，就是把这个玻璃胶的话，就是把它就是密封的话，他说这个大概2块钱左右吧 ，OK， 通常你1周就可以把这个钱省回来的。
Removing the air conditioners, this is an example on the left of what I'm referring to. And ideally, they should be taken out. But if they have to stay in, on the right, you see 2 products that you can buy to minimize the heat loss that you will definitely experience. On the top is an exterior cover. It costs under $10 at a big box store. And there's a quilted or a thermal interior cover that's about $20 or less that can be put on the inside. And you can put both, but at least one of them.
So how much do you say about the top one, the external? Steve? Oh. No. Steve?
Yes, sorry.
Oh, yes, sorry. How much does that cost for the external one?
The external one is probably about $10 or less.
About $10. OK。刚才他就是说，刚才他有说这个就像枪口式的这个冷气，他就是说右手边有2个工具，你最小起码要用其中一个啊。上面呢是外面的一个就是套 ，OK， 它这个大概是10块钱吧。然后如果你是里边的话，可以用下边有一个里边的这个垫子，可能大概是20块以内。
I mentioned about sealing ducts if you have a furnace. Just a couple of examples of what a homeowner can do to do their own duct sealing. Just look for a gap like that, or even a joint like that. You can buy duct sealing tape from a hardware store or again, a big box store, and you just wrap it around just like you see here. And again, that keeps more air in the duct, which means you get more air coming out where it's supposed to come out, which is in your first and second floor.
然后他就是刚才说的是管道去把它密封了，就像左上角有一个图片，这个是管道跟这个中间有一个洞的，其实就可以封。然后下边有一个图，就是说有一些就像你贴管道，就是管道与管道之间呢是有一些洞的，所以他的意思就是把一些这个叫怎么胶布的 ，OK 就是把它密封起来，这样子就可以也是可以省能源的。
Yeah, forget that. And as I mentioned earlier, making sure, in this example on the left, you see that just the way the design of that room went, they put a chair right over a register. And that's discouraged because that heat now is going to take a while to get out from under there and eventually heat. It'll still heat, but it's needlessly being obstructed, excuse me.
这就是说，看这个图片，你看到这个 sofa 这个冷气口就是在这个 sofa 的下边 ，OK， 所以这个不是说不可以热，只是它需要很久的时间才可以这个冷气才可以去到来外面的。
Dress appropriate, of course. You don't have to wear a coat and a hat, but I would discourage just running around in a t-shirt and shorts unless you don't feel cold that much. But a lot of folks react to the coolness in their house and they go to the thermostat and they turn it up. And all they really have to do is put on a sweater or a long sleeve shirt or top or something of that nature.
他是说，就是要穿的就是合适的 ，OK， 就是当然不用这个戴这个帽子还是颈巾这些，可是最好就是不需要，就是穿着这个 T 恤就在家里短裤这样子在家里跑来跑去。有些人就是冷了，他就把这个温度调高了，其实他只需要再穿个一层衣服的话就可以了。
And this is the, as I said before, I think this is the best opportunity to save energy, to set back the thermostat. And here's the actual ratio that we use. For every degree that you can set back for 8 hours, you'll save about, they say 1 to 3, but I typically, when it's really cold out, I think you'll save about 3% for every degree, you can set back for 8 hours. So let's say folks go to bed and on average, they sleep for 8 hours. They can set back 5 degrees, like I said previously. That's a 15% consumption savings right there, just by turning the dial back and maybe throwing on an extra blanket or a comforter or something like that.
他就是说，刚才也说了，外区还是睡觉的时候，把这个冷气度就是这个就是调低一点。他就是说，每1度你调低了，就是8个小时的话，就可以省去3% 的你的能源消耗。就是说，如果你睡觉的时候8个小时，然后你把它调低5度的话，那么你基本上就可以省去15% 的你这个能源消耗。
And the ceiling fan that I mentioned, the idea is that as soon as heat comes enters the room through a radiator or register, the very first thing it does is rise. It's like walking into a room with a helium balloon and then letting go of the helium balloon. What is it going to do? It will immediately go straight up and hug the ceiling. And that's because helium is lighter than the cooler air in the room. Heated air is also lighter than the cooler air in the room, so it behaves just like a helium balloon. So the first thing it does is hug the ceiling. And that's why we turn the fan on to push it back down again. And the fan is very, very energy efficient, so it doesn't cost a lot of money to run the fan. I'll let you take that.
Yeah, 所以他就是说这个冷气的话呢，通常出来之后，它因为就是热空气是上升的，因为它们比较轻。所以它们上升的话，第一个遮住到的就是这个这个叫天花 ，OK， 然后就像这个氢气球一样的 ，OK， 它都会上升嘛 ，OK， 可是所以它上升到上面的话，如果你上面有一个这个天花的风向的话，它在慢慢的转的话，就把这个热空气把它打下来，这样子就这个热空气也可以回来下边。
As I mentioned, making sure your filters are clean. Just a basic filter costs $1 maybe from if you buy individually. It's cheaper than that if you buy it in bulk, like six filters. But they are very, very important to making sure you get enough air out of your furnace. And they can probably, if you spend $1 new filter, and it looks like the one on the bottom, the difference between the top and the bottom is probably 50% delivery delta.
OK， 他就是说还有刚才说要更换这个过滤器 ，OK， 所以如果他就是说，通常你要更换了，就是要确保这个空气是可以出来的，这个热空气是可以出来的。就是通常这个 filter 就是1块钱左右吧 ，OK， 就是他的意思就是你刚才买多一点，它就便宜一点了 ，OK， 然后他就是说你如果就2个对比，上面这个是新的，下面这个是旧的 ，OK， 你看它好脏然后所以他就是说，如果上面跟下边的就是这个可能是50% 的，就是可能下面这个有50% 的这个空气是过不了的。
And this isn't an energy conservation tip. This is just an advisory that if at all possible, try not to use space heaters at all. They are very expensive. They're all electric today. We used to have kerosene heaters, but today they're all electric. And a lot of the homes in Philadelphia still don't have up-to-date wiring. And that's where we run into the problems during the heating season with fires. So it's more cost effective and safer, most importantly, if there is an area in your home where you feel that you need a space heater, it's better to invest in having a heating contractor figure out why you have to run a space heater and investing in the improvement as opposed to band-aiding the coolness, the discomfort in your house with a space heater.
他就是说他们是坚决的，就是反对用这些小型的供冷气的 ，OK， 因为这些小型的供冷气很多时候都是用电的，然后在飞行的房子很多时候这些电路就是比较旧的， 所以当你增加这个暖气的话，有可能就造成这些火灾。他说，如果你就是感觉你家里特别有一个地方是比较冷的话，他认为你可以找一个就是装修了和有一个就是进来去帮你看一看，就是你怎么可以改善，就是可以做一些什么投资去改善这一地区的这些冷暖气的，这样子就不用就可以改善好一点。
About 50% of the time when you hear a fire engine in the city of Philadelphia during the heating season, they're responding to an event that was created by a space heater.
他说，在费城，如果你听到有这些这个消防车在响的时候，很多时候他们就是去回应，就是因为这些小型供暖器引起的这些火灾。
Now, for folks that do want to make their home more energy efficient and they don't feel like doing it themselves, the best way to start on that path is to invest in having a professional energy audit.
他说，有些人就是不想自己做了，就是想就最好的方法就是去省这个能源的话，就是可以去投资去找一个就是这个能源的就是评估过来。
The single most cost-effective thing that you can do to a row home or a single-family detached home is to air seal it, first and foremost.
他说就是不太真实的话，就是去把这个密封 ，OK， 把这个房子密封就是最有效的。
Insulation is the next step, of course. And today, we should have at least 12 to 15 inches of insulation in the attic.
他就说，然后就是这个 installation 就是把它隔绝，把这个空气就是就是隔开，就是下一步，就是很多时候现在这个要确保你的阁楼，就是最上面的那个楼层里边有12到15英寸的这个隔绝层。
And lastly, make sure the heating system is serviced, that it has been tuned up, and again, the filters, making sure that they are clean.
然后你也可以去调整一下你的加热系统，然后要确保这个过滤器是干净的。
And those are the tips that I thought I would share today. Excuse me. I'm reading my wear mask thing. So I'm taking any questions. ECA, I probably should talk about ECA. We do offer the City of Philadelphia's, or provide, I should say, City of Philadelphia's heater hotline. If somebody is defined as being at 150% of federal poverty level, and they have an inoperable heater in their home heating system, they're most likely eligible for the heater hotline. And that's a service that is at no cost for them. And we'll fix that system no matter what it takes.
OK 他就是说他基本上刚才讲的都已经讲完，就是想讲一些 ECA ECA 基本上就是能源协调机构 OK 他们就是他们是费城市政府的其中一个部门，他们就是有一个叫 Heater Hotline， 就是暖气的热线。就是如果你是收入比较低150个贫穷线以下的，然后你家里的那个暖气是不工作的话，他们去提供一个服务是就是免费的服务，去帮你去收这个暖气。Just want to make sure is that just to fix or it also help to replace.
And I should have mentioned this. Heater hotline is for homeowners only. Unfortunately, tenants are not eligible for the program.
他就是说这个暖气的热线只是给这个房东的，如果是租客是没办法了。
Now, if we run another program called LIHEAP Crisis as well, as Lydia had talked about, and that program is for tenants and homeowners and is 200% of federal poverty level.
然后呢，它还有一个叫 LIHEAP Crisis， 就是刚才Lydia有讲过的关于这个危机的冷气的危机的 ，OK， 这个计划是 的盆孔线，就是收入比较高的都可以符合条件。然后这个计划是给这个租客还有这个房东都可以的。
And light heat crisis will allow for replacement of the heating system, whereas heater hotline is strictly a repair only program.
它就是这个 crisis 危机的话是可以去帮你更换这个暖气系统的。可是刚才一开始说的这个暖气热线的话，它只是帮你回收这个暖气，可是不会帮你换的。
ECA also offers weatherization through the Department of Energy.
然后还有一些有一个叫防寒保暖计划的，这个是这个能源的部门，市政府的能源部门去负责的。
I'll just go back to my ECA slide here up front. I don't forget anything. Let's see, we fix heating systems, we provide weatherization, and of course we have a training department. We're not talking about that today. So that's pretty much that's my story, and I'm going to stick to it for today. Do you have any questions?
他就是回去看看他有没有漏了什么东西的 ，OK。然后其实他也就是想问一问大家有没有什么问题，我可能就是想叫他讲一讲这个能源这个防寒保暖的计划。So Steve, I just want to because I know there's some people that up here interested in the weatherization program that ECA offer. So could you actually kind of explain about what will be done for that weatherization program?
Yeah, that is a good question. So in weatherization, let's start off right at the top. So first and foremost, the energy audit is performed, and the energy audit takes about 2 to 3 hours on average.
我刚才就是问他这个防寒保暖计划是怎么一回事的 weatherization， 他就是说第一步就是说要有一个能源的这个评估，这个评估大概是2到3个小时的。
The energy auditor will write up all the prescriptive or all the measures that he or she feels that home needs and that are determined to be cost effective. So they run a blower door fan, and that tells us how air leaky the house is. And that's the first thing that we do.
OK， 他就是说这个能源的这个评估员，就是去的话就会看这个房子，然后他会就是写一些报告，就是说有什么这个房子是可以做的，有什么措施是可以做的，令到这个房子可以省钱省能源的。他们第一样做的话，就是有一个风扇在这个门里边有一个就是吹风扇，他就是去这样子做了之后，就知道这个房子有多漏这个能源出去的。
As part of the energy audit, we test all the gas piping in the house for gas leaks.
然后他也就是也会去测试所有的这个煤气的这个管道，看看有没有漏煤气的。
We test the heating system, the water heater, and if the range or an oven are fossil fuel or gas, we test them for carbon monoxide as well.
然后他也会测试这些暖气系统这个热水炉还有这个可能炉头就是所有关于这个煤气的，然后他也会去测试这个有没有这个一氧化碳。
We also look at the refrigerator. The primary.
他们也会看这个这个叫冰箱。
If the refrigerator is 10 years old or older, we will offer to the homeowner or tenant, in this case, what we call a swap. So we will take the old inefficient refrigerator and provide a new comparably sized refrigerator.
OK， 然后他也会看这个冰箱，看看如果这个冰箱是10年以上的 ，OK， 他们会提供，就是不管是房东还是这个租客，都会提供一个就是转换，就是可能把你的旧的拿走，然后提供一个新的给你，就是这个要看它的大小是差不多的冰箱。
We'll also replace inefficient lighting with LED bulbs.
然后它也会把你的那个灯胆，如果是灯胆是不省能源的话，它也会帮你换成 LED 的灯。
And the bulk of the work that we do in the home is first and foremost air sealing, which mostly takes place 70% of the air sealing, 75%, 3/4 of the air sealing that we do in a typical home is in the attic or the attic cavity in the basement.
然后他们就是非正式的去把这个空气就是密封的话，第一步就是密封这个空气。然后它大概大部分的工程都是在你的这个阁楼，就是就是屋顶跟这个房子中间的这个阁楼，就是去做这个密封的。还有地牢也会的。
And then the last step typically is blowing insulation into the attic cavity.
然后最后一个就是说把这个你的阁楼还有就是把它翻译成隔缘层。
We do repair windows, and it's not guaranteed, so I'm sort of choosing my words carefully here. We can replace windows, but only if they are absolutely structurally unsound.
OK， 他们也有可能去换这个窗户，可是是没有保证的。OK， 通常是非常需要，就是说这个窗子真的很快是有这个结构问题的话，他们才会把它换了。
And we will also, I should have mentioned this up front, we'll install CO, carbon monoxide, and smoke detectors, lithium-ion battery that are good for 10 years on each floor in the home as well, if they don't have them, that is.
也还有，如果你家里是没有这个可以就是烟雾探测器还有就是一氧化碳探测器的话，他们也会每一层楼都会帮你安装的。
If the heating system is determined to be producing unsafe levels of carbon monoxide, or its efficiency is not very good, we will tune it up to clear out the carbon monoxide and also increase the efficiency.
然后如果他发觉你的暖气是就是现在在做一些不安全的，就算一氧化碳还是什么的，他会帮他做一个调整。还有就是如果能源是不够的话，这个就是效率不够的话，他就是会把它就是做一个调整，然后让它可以更有效的，还有就是更安全的。
And that's pretty much the service that we provide. It starts with an energy audit, a health and safety evaluation, and then the thermal integrity and the whole energy upgrade work. Our goal is to reduce the energy load in that house by 20%, 20 to 25%. That's our goal.
OK， 他说他们通常就是刚才说的，就是说他们的计划，他们的目标就是可以把这个家里的能源可以省掉，就是省20到25%。
And that's it. Any more questions?
I do say that you did not mention about how people can apply for all those services that you mentioned. And I don't think you mentioned about NEC either.
I thought it was just the weatherization guy. So I didn't mention that. Lydia did such a great job about describing the process. I actually learned a couple of things. Yes, ECA, we have 17 neighborhood energy centers, of which Ping Ho is, we just added your site, right? It's NEC. And actually, you're the busiest. I'll share that with you. You're doing Miss Lorraine is ecstatic with you, by the way. But they can apply for LIHEAP or DOE or a heater hotline if they have a inoperable heating system. They can go to a neighborhood energy center, and we highly recommend they use the neighborhood energy centers as opposed to coming to our office, which they can in North Philadelphia, West Kensington, North Philadelphia.
对，我刚才就是说他漏了讲说什么申请，然后还有他的这个能源协调 就是伦理人员中心啊，他刚才就是说他们底下呢是有17个这样子的机构叫 NEC 的 ，OK， 然后PCDC 现在是是最新的一个然后他也说我们是最忙的，他说只是 NEC 都是可以帮忙去申请 LIHEAP 就刚才这个冷气，就是还有冷气这个冷气没办法做工就是这些，还有就是这个防寒保暖的计划，他都是可以帮忙申请。当然了，也可以去他们的办公室是在北费城那里的。Okay. Yeah. So I actually want to see if anyone has questions. 有没有随时有问题关于这个他刚才说了I just want to also provide a feedback is I was shocked to see my energy bill this month that my gas bill was only I think $60. I think that was because I keep yelling at my husband wearing shorts and t-shirt in the house, and I purposely lowered the temperature to 68 degrees instead of 75. So I was shocked to see my bill was $60. I think last month in November, instead of over $100 in the winters.
Yes, yes.
对，我就是想跟大家分享一下，就是说我这一个月看我的能源单呢，我的煤气单呢是60块钱，因为应该有可能就是因为我经常跟我老公就是就是说他穿着短袖衣服，然后还有短裤在房子里边，然后我现在把这个temperature 就是空气都是调到是68度，不是以前的75度，所以以前我们通常都是100多块的，现在就是就是比较省钱的。Okay, so just want to see if anyone has questions.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Steve, providing the valuable information about weatherization insulating your home, and that's the best way to save money. So, if anybody need information, please come to PCDC. 我们现在需要谢谢 Steve 提供那个宝贵的资料给我们，提供到我们知道怎么去把房子去保暖一下，就可以省很多钱的。如果大家有需要的话，可以到我们 PCDC 我们提供服务。今天非常感谢大家Thank you everyone. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Lydia.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ping, too.
Okay.
Thank you. You sure you want to stop recording? How? Yes.